Oh, hey, what's up, gang? It's Kevin Strange here from Hack Movies, award-winning um, novelist and filmmaker, um, nominated for not one but two Wonderland Book Awards, um, creator of the now feminist, women's-only publishing house, Strange House Books. This is a funny video. I wasn't planning on doing any live videos anytime soon, but I believe this is necessary, although I'm not sure that it will have its intended effect. The fact is, I was contacted this week, and I was told that there is a character running around Facebook who is causing a lot of drama and doing a lot of trolling in the Facebook Bizarro writing community, which is kind of redundant because the only writing community that that Bizarro Fiction even has is on Facebook. It is sort of a Facebook, it is an internet Facebook group that pats itself on the back and tries to give itself more credibility than it deserves. Not because Bizarro isn't a great genre of fiction, it is. Not because many quality books haven't been written in the genre, because they have, but because over the years, Bizarro has become a tiny and growing smaller by the day echo chamber for hard alt-left social justice warriors. And they have purged anyone from their ranks that doesn't agree with them, or at least bend the knee, because they'll tell you of the 200 or so people that hang out in the Bizarro circle that, you know, one or two of them espouse conservative views, but, you know, they are the most cucked conservatives you could ever imagine, and are always quick to apologize for any opinions that may hurt the feelings of the social justice warriors. So I was contacted this week and told that there are accusations that Kevin Strange is in fact this character, Bob Carl, who's been causing trouble in the Bizarro community. I am here today to deny those accusations, although I have a feeling that no one will believe me when I say this. Several months ago, I disabled my Facebook account. You probably don't know this because I didn't make a big fuss about it like most people do when they leave social media for attention. I didn't leave social media for attention. I left social media so that I could concentrate on brushing up or actually, you know, gaining illustration skills in sequential art or comic book art. Long story short, I lost a good friend this year who was the cinematographer and a very close friend of Hack Movies, one of the driving forces behind Hack Movies, of the 7 feature films that I made. And yes, I won awards for those films too. 2009's Nixon and Hogan Smoke of the Christmas won the Tulsa, Oklahoma Underground Film Festival's Best Movie to Smoke to award, which I didn't know existed. I don't know if the purveyors of the Tulsa, Oklahoma Underground Film Festival knew that award existed before they gave it to me. But nevertheless, that's an official film festival, and they did give me that official award in 2009. So I thank you for that. The guy's name is Art Sunday, who runs the Tulsa, Oklahoma Underground Film Festival, and I am an award-winning filmmaker. My film Dead Shit from 2007 was also an official selection of the New Mexico branch of the Trauma. What do they call? What are the Trauma Dance? The Trauma Dance Film Festival. So, and I've been the official selection of the Fright Night Film Festival, 2007 and 2008. They did a double feature of my films Dead Shit and Colonel Kill Motherfuckers, both well received. Mick Foley of WWE fame actually commented on as he strolled by the convention table that Colonel Kill Motherfuckers was the best name for a movie he had ever seen in his life. He then, of course, passed it by without buying a copy. Nevertheless, our good friend Nick Head, the cinematographer of Hack Movies, passed away this year at the absolutely far too young age of 41. And it affected me in a lot of ways because Nick and I had talked about possibly getting the band back together and shooting at least one more movie with everybody while we were still young enough that we could go through the rigors of guerrilla underground independent filmmaking before we were too old and too fucked up physically to do so. And we never got the opportunity to make that movie because he tragically died. And that sent me on kind of a tailspin of emotion because I felt like there could never be another Hack Movies. Even if I did go on to make another film someday, it wouldn't be the same without Nick. Nick was such an integral part of the process and of what I did. He helped bring my vision to life, and I couldn't have done what I did without him. In fact, there are several times that I did movies like Stiff Jobs, where they turned out, very subpar compared to the movies that Nick did work on, like Cockhammer and Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas, which are the seminal Hack movies. I felt like it was the end of an era, and I didn't want to let that go. I didn't want to let him pass into memory without some kind of a tribute. And that got the wheels in my head turning. And I started writing a graphic novel script that could be a sequel to our 2007 film Dead Shit, that could be the tribute that Nick deserved. I could actually put Nick as a character and the best role that he played in Hack Movies, Don Dueppe, the villain of Nixon and Hogan, the arch villain of Nixon and Hogan from the Dead Shit series. I could bring them back into a comic book and make it a meta story where we as the Hack Movies crew and the characters all get to say our goodbyes to Nick. And I did find an artist, and we're working diligently on that book, but the process got my juices flowing. I used to draw as a kid, as early as 8 years old. My dream in life was to write and draw comic books. And I haven't picked up a pen and drawn with any deliberate, attempt at making art in 15 years. I abandoned my illustration aspirations to throw myself fully into film, and then when I left film, fully into writing fiction. And I was able to win awards and become sections as a filmmaker, better or worse, because a lot of you will say that I make terrible films, and that's fine. I then threw myself into fiction writing, and I was able to win awards doing that as well. And again, many of you out there will say that my writing sucks. That's fine. That's your opinion. I realized that I wanted to. I'm almost 40 years old, and all of this process of processing of Nick's passing, realizing that this latent desire of mine to illustrate comic books, there was really no reason not to pursue this. I've written 20 novels, and as I was finishing up like my 21st novel, She Was Only a Clown, I realized that I didn't have anything on the table. I didn't owe a novel to anyone, and I decided to throw myself into illustration in the same way that I had thrown myself into filmmaking previously and had thrown myself into fiction writing previously, to use the types of skills and tricks that I developed along the way to learn these very difficult skills. I would throw myself back at illustration because I never did develop very good illustration skills. And so I'm sort of trying to teach myself from the ground up at almost 40 years old all of the fundamentals of sequential storytelling. And one of the things that I did was I disabled my Facebook account because I spent too much time on social media for no really good apparent reason. Like when I eventually shut down my Facebook page, I wasn't even like starting fights with the Bizarros or anything anymore. I had moved on. There's nothing. The thing about the Bizarros is the only time I would ever have anything to say is whenever I felt like they were being extreme hypocrites and I needed to expose them as being hypocritical social justice warriors, as trapped in an ideology that can't even live up to its own standards. And there were several videos that I did leading up to me leaving Facebook. Like it was very critical of Brian Keene and Wrath James White for launching the Splatter Awards, or whatever it was. I don't even remember. I would have to brush up on the names of all this stuff because all the names are so similar. There's the Splatterpunk Awards, there's the Splatter Awards, there's the Bloodbound books, there's bloodletting books. There's all this. I literally have to like re-educate myself every time I'm going to talk about these subjects because I always get it wrong because all this stuff is so similar in name. So anyway, there were a few things like that that I did leading up, in the months before I left. But again, they were topical. They were happening in the moment, and I would do a video in the moment. But I had honestly, emotionally taken myself out of the Bizarro writing community. There's just nothing there. There's nothing left there. And as I was finding this like renewed passion for illustration and comic book writing, I stumbled upon the Comicsgate movement happening on Twitter, and I backed a few of the Comicsgate books of these conservative-leaning writers and artists. Some of them devout Christians, very very hardcore conservative, and there was none of that in the Bizarro or the horror writing community. Everyone was just the same, robot, atheist, postmodernist, secularist, nihilistic. You know what I mean? I can go down the list of personality traits that these people in the writing, the Bizarro and horror writing communities possessed, and it was like a breath of fresh air to see this like new attitude and ideology. And I was backing these books, and these books were making like 25,000, 50,000, 80,000. There's one, the most famous Comicsgate book by Ethan Van Sciver, Cyberfrog, raised $600,000 in its crowdfunding campaign. I'm like, wow, this is where the action is. A Bizarro book that comes out will be lucky to sell 40 copies. Let's be honest. There's only one guy in Bizarro fiction that makes money, and his name's Carlton Mellick. He's the only one that sells any books. These people are literally just a Facebook group that claims to be more important than they are. This wasn't always the case. Back in 2008, 2009 era Bizarro fiction, people were making a living and quitting their jobs, writing books full-time, opening publishing houses. Those days are long gone because they cut their own throat, man. They cut their own head off. The Bizarro fiction community, they went all in on social justice. They got woke and went broke, and there's nothing there anymore. There's no reason to even identify as a Bizarro writer if you have any plans at making a living as a writer, because your Bizarro books simply will not sell. They just will not sell. And that's no one's fault except for the leaders of that community. The responsibility is on the leadership of that community for allowing the social justice warriors to infiltrate them and then obliterate anyone that wasn't, hardcore feminist, hardcore, social justice warrior. And they pushed all of us away that had any talent. There's no one, the talent has always when the SJWs infiltrate your community, the first casualties are the talented, because they don't care about talent. They don't care about the product. They care about the ideology, and then they try to guilt and shame the consumers for not being into the subpar product. And that's where we're at in the Bizarro writing community. The trend in Bizarro is to just proclaim yourself trans, and then that's somehow going to sell books. And it's just like this huge influx of mostly men identifying as women for whatever reason, and not a lot of women identifying as men. And I don't know why that is. That's just an observation I've made, that there are many many of the men in Bizarro fiction have become women over the last several years, and that doesn't have anything to do with the quality of their product. But then they try to push themselves and the characters in their books as trans, as though a man being a woman is just intrinsically by itself going to appeal to an audience and create a market, and that's just not true. You have to tell good stories before anything, and the trend of men being women is just whatever, bizarre. Only in the sense that it's like that shouldn't have any, as you're a writer, it doesn't matter if you're blue or purple. It doesn't matter if you're from Mars. You're trying to tell a good story. And it's like these people they're so incapable of separating their personal identity from their fiction writing. It's like, I've written books where main characters are women. I've written books where the main characters were robots. I've written books where the main characters were monsters that don't, have no bearing at all on the real world. And it's like in Bizarro fiction, it's like even the females and the feminists that have infiltrated Bizarro fiction, there's this weird thing I've noticed about chicks in Bizarro is they put their own faces on the cover of all their books, even if it's an illustrated version. Sometimes it's just like a photo of themselves. Sometimes it's an illustrated version, but these women put their own faces on the cover of their books, which is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre that they can't separate their own like social media identity even from their own fiction, and it doesn't sell. No one cares about it. It's like just an ego overload, and that's not what appeals to people. People that buy fiction, they buy fiction based on if they themselves can find a something to relate to in the story and the characters. And when you're just being your social media self in your fiction, it's just like, people already follow you on social media. Why should they spend money on you lying to them, making up a story? Anyway, all of that is to say that I found that all the action was over in the Comicsgate, indie comics world anyway. So started writing the tribute book, and then I wrote a bunch of. I was so inspired. I wrote a bunch of like hack movies related graphic novel scripts. And this whole time I've been doing this. I had disabled my Facebook account and completely lost interest in the writing communities for all the reasons I just stated. It's like, this is just clown shoes. This is like cringy. Like the state of indie fiction, indie lit is just so cringy. I don't even want any part of it. And none of them are making money anyway. Like there's no action there. There's no sales there. There's no one reading. They just read each other. It's just writers reading writers. There's no fan base there anymore. Every fan of this niche fiction style becomes a writer of this fiction style. It's like 100% writers. So I left. I left Facebook. Have no interest in talking. This is the most I've talked about Bizarro in months. I have no reason to. Here's an example of one of my pages. This is like a most of it is just like thumbnails. I'm working out the panels that I'm going to put in a bigger. I actually have an 11 by 17 book here where I'm doing the full sized. This is where the actual images will go that I'll pencil and ink for the. So I have an artist that's working on the Dead Shit sequel, but I decided I was going to go back and reimagine Dead Shit Part 1, the actual movie, the 2007 film. I decided I was going to go back and reimagine the original movie that centered around this medallion, the talisman of Tikinaya in the movie, and then I've reimagined this as the talisman of transmutation in the graphic novel version. So here I am toiling away, writing and drawing. I've been buying all these buying books like this. Just giving myself an education in sequential art, graphic design. And then here I get contacted by one of my friends on Facebook, because I still have Messenger, so that I have a lot of friends and family, real life friends and family on my Facebook page, and I didn't want to abandon their ability to communicate with me. So I still, you can disable your Facebook page and still have a Facebook Messenger. So I still have a Facebook Messenger. And I was contacted through there, and a guy asked me if I was, what is this dude's name? Forgot what this dude's name even is. I looked it up so I could put it in the description of this video. Bob Carl. So he's like, "Hey, are you Bob Carl?" And I'm like, "Who's Bob Carl?" And then I remembered that the same guy had asked me previously if I knew who he was. This was like months and months ago, before I left Facebook. Had asked me if I knew who this Bob Carl person was, and I remembered that this guy was starting trouble right before I left. He had because he added me on Facebook, and I accepted it. I accepted the invitation, whatever. He had like a nuclear bomb explosion with like a clown head in it. Was the guy's profile thumbnail picture. I didn't remember his fucking name. I never thought about him again after that initial conversation I had with my friend, who told me that this guy was like tearing through the Bizarros and causing trouble. And I was like, well, yeah, it actually surprises me. Well, it doesn't surprise me that more people don't, because like I said, there's only about 200 of them. So there's not very many people that even, care enough about them to complain or try to troll them or start shit. Which is probably why they think I'm this guy, because there's just not that many people who push back against these people. So he contacted me this week and asked me, "Hey, are you Bob Carl?" And I was like, "Who is that?" And I had to remind myself that it was this nuclear bomb guy. And I was like, "No, why?" And he's like, "Well, they're talking about you in the Bizarro fiction circles. They're all convinced that this is you, that this is an alt account that is shit posting, like you're shit posting under a troll account." And I was like, well, and this same guy, I'm like, you follow me on Twitter, you see that I'm like balls deep in this Comicsgate stuff, backing these people's books, talking and developing relationships with these artists and writers in Comicsgate, and you've seen me post my progress, my drawing progress on Instagram and stuff. It's like, you think that I'm over here involved in Comicsgate, drawing and illustrating and writing comic books every day, working my full-time job, and I'm an alt account on Facebook messing with the Bizarros. I was like, you think too highly of me, man. I don't, there's not that many hours in the day to be able to do this stuff. And so I thought, I don't know, he said some other stuff about how they were they're convinced it's me, and then there's like threats of violence against me, that these guys want to punch me. And I find that funny. We're talking about alt fiction writers. Like, these people aren't bad. Like, none of these people are fighters. And there's one fighter. His name's Wrath James White, and he's this gigantic fucking dude that's trained professional MMA and kickboxers, and he'll never let you go a day without like telling you that. Like, his whole identity is around how much of a badass martial artist he is. And all I can say is, like, dude, you hang out in writing communities and you're gonna beat up writers, like, go, okay, like, what does that prove? It just proves you're a big fucking bully, which you are. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter, is you're just a big fucking bully that intimidates people with your size. It's like, okay. And if that guy himself wants to punch me, it's like, I mean, I would be surprised even if his big ass self was able to put me down with a punch. I'll put it that way. I've never been knocked down from a punch, let alone knocked out. So good luck. I mean, if you can, you can. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm a big fucking dude too, 270 pounds, and I ain't afraid to scrap. So these guys that think they're going to run up and punch me, it's like, if you run up and punch me in the back of the head, I don't see you coming, you're probably going to break your hand, because I got a big ass fucking hard head. And again, good luck. You're not going to if you knock me down, I'll be surprised. All you'll do is surprise. Like, wow, I'm almost 40 years old. I've never been knocked down from a punch before. Like, that just doesn't happen. I've got a big, thick fucking skull, like, made for this. Like, it's whatever. And there'll be conventions that I go to. Again, I've been off the convention circuit. Again, I've got a full novel, 60,000 word novel. She Was Only a Clown, a 45,000 word short story collection, The Strange Saga of Jorek the Barbarian. And I've got these graphic novel scripts that I've been working on. So I haven't been on the road. I haven't been out there selling books or anything. And I don't plan to until I, master this skill of illustrating comic books till I get this dead shit comic book exactly where I want it. And then I've got some other scripts I've been working on too. But I'll eventually be back on the road. This is my life. This is what I do. I'll be back on the road selling comic books and selling movies and novels. And if anybody wants to like start a fight with me and try to think they're gonna like sucker punch me, I mean, go ahead and try. It's not gonna work out well. It's not gonna work out well for one of us or maybe both of us. Like you're not. I'm not I'm not some little lily-livered, pale skinned writer boy. Like we're gonna scrap, and it ain't gonna. There's gonna be blood, and whatever, we're going to get bloody, and I hope you're ready for that. Like I hope you don't think you're just going to run up and like sucker punch me and I'm going to be like, bro, but why, bro? Like we're going to get bloody, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, we can do it. I don't care. I'll fight, any day of the week. That doesn't bother me at all. I just don't think the writing community is prepared to do that, is all I'm saying. It is what it is. So I just wanted to make this video, let everybody know that I'm not Bob Carl. I don't know that you're going to believe that. A lot of people in the Bizarro community have built me up as such a boogeyman that they believe that I am like ubiquitous. I'm always there. I'm always around. They don't have, it's like there was never a villain in Bizarro before, but once I became the villain of Bizarro, it's like there always has to be one. And so now, even when I'm not around, even when I've completely like walked away from the clown shoes cringy nonsense, it's like they got to keep me around. They got to try to drag me back into it. And I'm not going to, like, this video is all you're going to get out of me. I'm not going to reactivate my Facebook account, and I'm not going to go play around with the Bizarros. I'm just, making a public statement that I'm not this character, whoever he is. I mean, I've got a few ideas. There's a few guys that do make, I've never made. So here's the question. The question is, why, after all these years, after a decade of being very vocal and having my reputation dragged through the mud and having these people ridicule me and attack me and try to destroy me as a creative entity, like absolutely rip the name Kevin Strange to shreds, why, after all this time, why would I put myself through all that only to make an alt account and mess with them now? Why wouldn't I have made an alt account and mess with them from the alt account all along, and then let the Kevin Strange persona like be clean and not cause controversy? Like I've never had an alt account. That's not me. It's not who I am. I've always been this guy. I sit here and talk to you on the camera. This is me. We're hanging out in my office. This is who I am. This is what I do every day of the week, 7 days a week. I sit here in this, I drive down here to this office and I draw comic books. That's what I do. I'll show you guys another cool shot from the Dead Shit comic book. And again, this is just like the sketchbook. Like, this isn't even the actual art. The actual art goes in this 11 by 17. But you can see here, it's like a bird's eye view shot. The big long arms from the zombie down there, holding our heroes Nixon and Hogan by the throat pieces. This is what I'm doing. I'm not Bob Carl. I'm Kevin Strange working on comic books, bro. But there's a few guys that have. There's a guy that admitted to me that when the big Bizarro Gate drama was going on, and I was hot and heavy, I was doing a podcast every week, and I was like really like taking these guys to task. There's a guy who admitted to me that he was himself on Facebook, and he had an alt account, and the alt account was opposed to what I was doing, while his actual account was defending me, or the other way around. And so he would literally get into arguments with himself on the threads that I would start. And that's just fucking bizarre to me. Like, it's crazy to me that people take the time to do this kind of silly stuff. Like, I would never waste my time. Like, I don't play video games. I'm the kind of guy that thinks playing video games is a waste of my time. You think I'm going to like create a bunch of alt accounts on the internet and play around as different personalities? I don't have time for that shit. That does not interest me at all. That doesn't impress, like yelling at people under an assumed name doesn't impress me at all. Like, if we're going to fight, we're going to fight. You're going to fight this guy. You're going to fight this guy and everything that comes with being this guy. That's just who I am. And so I have an idea. Again, the Bizarro community is such a shallow pool of people. It's probably that guy, or any number of other guys like that have always like operated under these like weird alt accounts. There's a guy that'll like add me He'll like add me to social media, and he'll like contact me, and he'll buy a signed book, and he'll like talk me, oh bro, yeah, I can't wait for your new book, blah blah blah. And then a couple months later he'll delete me. He'll like block me from social media, and then a couple of months later he'll add me back and then try to buy stuff from me and suck up to me, and then block me again. And then he does this back and forth and back and forth. He's probably done this 20 times, to the point that now I don't even accept the guy's friend requests whenever I'm like, this motherfucker again with the back and forth. It could be that guy. There's all kinds of like whacked out people that get involved in the writing community because there's no barrier of entry. You just write. You just call yourself. It's one of the things I've always criticized about these internet writing communities is all you do is get on the internet one day and call yourself a writer. There's a couple guys I went to high school with that jocked my nuts so hard that I created a publishing house that before they ever published anything, like they had nothing, they just suddenly were publishers one day. It's like there's a disproportionate amount of people who went to my high school that consider themselves indie fiction publishers just because I like forged that path. And they're phonies, they're total posers. They're not writers. They just wanted that persona. They wanted to put on that internet persona. Oh, hey, I'm a writer. And there's just tons of wackos like that in the writing communities because there's no barrier of entry. You just decide you're a writer one day, and these people make alt accounts and they fuck with each other. So Bob Carl, whoever you are, I guess good on. I don't even know what you're saying to these people, but you rile them up to the point that they want to attack me physically. So I guess good job. I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. I'm not going to get involved in it any more than I already have with this video. This is my first word and my last word on the Bob Carl situation. It ain't me. Hope you guys have a good day. And you can follow me on Twitter at Hack Movies or Instagram at Kevin the Strange. And there you will find me working on comic books. Not on Facebook anymore. I don't ever plan to be again. So have a good day and keep it strange.